How's it going? Welcome to another All About RVs. I'm Jared Gillis, and today we're going to be talking about winterizing your RV. It's getting chilly, and you want to protect your RV while it's being stored in the wintertime so that you can use it next time you're ready to take it out. So there's a couple of options we can look at for winterizing your RV. You can blow the water lines out with air, or number two, you can fill those lines with antifreeze so that they don't freeze, break, all that kind of bad stuff. But before we dive into those, a couple other things you might want to keep in mind. Your tires, are you protecting them? Do you have them covering up your tires? Your batteries, you don't want them to be drained if it's going to be stored for a length of time. So you can get a battery tender to be able to put on there. It's a solar panel that can keep your batteries kind of charged and trickle charged, topped off. Or you can plug in your RV occasionally to top off those batteries. Find that solution so that you don't ruin your tires or your batteries also while it's sitting there. So let's dive into getting the water lines protected from the freezing. There's a few things that we're going to need depending on which direction you want to go. If you want to fill your lines with air, this is the adapter that we're going to use along with our air compressor. So this adapter is what allows us to blow out the water out of the lines so then they're filled with air instead. So if we go that route, we're still going to need probably at least a gallon of antifreeze that we're going to put in the drain lines so that your P-traps don't freeze. So if you go this route, you can see it's pretty inexpensive, just one adapter. If you don't have a compressor and you've been thinking about getting one for your RV, a lot of people will do this with a small compact Viair compressor, and then you can put it in your RV and then you have a compressor everywhere you go. So that's also a great option. And with that said, any of the things that we talk about in this video, I'll put a link down in the description so it's easy to find all these tools and things you might need. So if you want to go the antifreeze route and just fill your lines with antifreeze because you don't want to mess with the air compressor, then you can get a kit. This is a kit that we got. It has this valve and this hose and everything we need to hook up to our water pump so that we can just stick this hose into the antifreeze gallon, and then we can pull that through our lines to protect them from freezing. So let's get started. First off, we're going to do the air, and let's start with the water heater. Now, our water heater is a tankless, so we don't really have anything to drain here. There's no reservoir in here, but a couple of things you want to keep in mind is if you're going to drain your water heater tank, which you're going to if you're going to winterize it, you don't want to do it when it's filled with hot water. So first thing you want to do is turn it off the day before you're going to winterize. If you didn't turn it off the day before, then turn off the water heater with a switch inside and then run water through it until there's no more hot water in the hot water heater. Because when you go to pull the plug, you don't want to get burned. So this is your typical water heater, and you're going to have your plug down here at the bottom and then your pressure relief valve. This one has an anode rod, and it'll take the corrosion that would happen on the tank. So you won't have that in the aluminum tanks, it'll just be a plug. To drain it, you just want to pull this bottom plug out and then it'll start to drain. And then you can open up this pressure relief valve and it'll allow the whole thing just to drain out. Then once it's done draining, we can close that pressure relief valve and we can put this plug right back in the bottom. Now your typical RV water heater is going to have a bypass now that we've drained the water heater. So it's going to have probably 3 valves. They're always going to look a little bit different depending on the manufacturer, but you're going to have 3 valves typically that you're going to change the position on. So you want to close the valve going to the water heater. You want to open the valve that's in between that little short pipe that's the bypass, and then you want to close the valve that's coming out of the water heater into the main line. So what that does is it creates that loop of the water so now the cold is just going to flow straight to the hot water side and not put any water in your water heater. We also don't want any water left in our freshwater pump. So I've already emptied out our freshwater tank. I've already pulled that valve from last time we used it. So we don't have any water in there, but to get the water out of the pump, I'm just going to turn it on here, turn this faucet on. I'm going to do that for about 15 seconds. Don't do it too long. We don't want to damage that pump, but this will get any water out of that pump so it doesn't freeze. Now let's get the compressor ready. To set up your air compressor, you want to dial down the pressure. I'm going to go around between 30 to 40 PSI. You don't need a ton of pressure to blow out the water. You just want to be able to move some air so that water comes out. You don't want too much pressure because you don't want to cause damage to your pipes trying to get the water out. Now that we have that adjusted, we can blow some water out of the lines. Here's our water inlet to our trailer. So this is where we're going to connect our adapter. So we just screw this right into here. You don't need Teflon tape or anything because it has that washer in there. It's just like your garden hose attachment. But before we hook the hose to this, we're gonna take out any inline filters that we have in the trailer and just remove the filter, and you can put the housing back on there. Now we can hook our air compressor up, and we can go fixture to fixture to let the air out. So we just open up the fixtures until we are satisfied that all the water's out on that side. And then you can do the hot side also to get the water out there. It should be about 15-20 seconds per fixture on each side. We can drain any of the water filters that you might have in there too. But now we just have to go to each fixture and do that same thing. The shower, the bathroom faucet, the toilet, and don't forget any outside shower or kitchen sink that's outside. And last would be the low point drains. It's nice when they make these valves instead of caps. And then we want to add the antifreeze to the drains. Put them in those P-traps so that we don't have any water sitting in there. We also need to clean out the gray tanks and the black tanks. You want to make sure those are empty and clean. So some people will do this before they begin this entire process. That way, if they have a hose connection so that they can clean out those tanks really well, you can do that before so that you can air out that line too. But if you don't, any of that water that you're pushing in there through this process, you can drain out now as you clean out your tanks. So you want those tanks empty for winterization. So if you didn't like that way and you wanted to use antifreeze in your lines, then let's do that next. We can install this valve and use this hose to suck the antifreeze through the system. Normally you can just install this valve that came in this kit directly onto the side of the pump, but we don't have room because of our filter here. But it can just stay there, and when you want to do the winterizing, you can turn this to be able to pull the antifreeze through this hose that sticks directly into the antifreeze jug. Now, we don't have room for it, like I said, so we're gonna take this hose, connect it directly to the side of the pump, and put this into the jug of antifreeze. And that's how we'll get it into the system. Just a quick side note, you want to do the water heater the same way we did when we blew it out with air, except for you're not gonna be using the air. And so you already have the plug in there. All that is drained on the water heater. It's bypassed, so nothing's gonna flow into it. You don't need to waste all that antifreeze in there. So now we can put the hose into the antifreeze and we can start draining it at each of those locations, pretty much like we did with the water or with the air. Just a side note, this is also nice if you have a helper. Matt's gonna tell me if we're running out of antifreeze from the pump so we can put in the new one. Okay, so we'll turn on the pump, turn on a fixture, and wait for it to turn pink. Pink, turn that off. The bathroom sink, the shower, the toilet, don't forget the outside shower, and the low point drain underneath. Remember on each of those to do the hot and the cold side so that both sides are going to be protected. Now, one advantage to doing the air over the antifreeze is this section here where you bring in your city water. That may not be protected yet. That might still have some water in there. So oftentimes there's like a backflow prevention there, and it's basically like a button. So if you press the button in this area, you'll get that antifreeze to come out on the pump. So it'd be something kind of like this. So once you do that, it's then protected on this side too. I think I'm gonna clean this up so it doesn't stain. So now we just need to take the rest of our antifreeze. This took about 3 to 4 gallons to do this RV. And we're gonna pour some down those P-traps like we did when we did the air. Well, that's it to winterizing your RV. Just a few quick side notes. I had to get a hose clamp for this wand for being able to use the antifreeze. Thing was leaking like crazy. I wish they would give you a hose clamp, but other than that, it went pretty good. So remember, if this video helped you or if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos, hit that subscribe button. And if we don't see you on the road, hopefully we'll see you in the next video.